So I assume Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not an idiot. I wonder if she's from the Heinz Fortune, you know? Oh no, spelled differently. The only other Heinz I know is Gregory Hines, the dancer. I'm looking forward to reading Robert's book about lessons learned, American values, lessons learned, and, you know, his honesty and whatever. Compelling honesty with a storyteller's gift. That's quite a compliment. Boy, they have genes in that family. Honest to God, I would sit down and listen for at least 30 minutes if any Kennedy wanted to explain to me why they're devout Roman Catholics. At least 30 minutes. And I assume Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would not be against the real Holy Spirit, who is a truth teller like him. So how do Roman Catholics feel about the real Holy Spirit, who's more of a hippie than a nun? I don't know. But I think I could spare 30 minutes to a Kennedy. With my mouth shut. God's not gonna let me know anything till it's all over. I've got a real prejudice against the church. Not necessarily the Pope. If he protects predators against children, I've got a prejudice against the Pope. And if he wants to feed the poor, and if he cares about people, as long as he doesn't protect predators of children. I don't know how you remain a devout Roman Catholic in the face of some of these things happen in Canada at those schools. Stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, Rose could rule from the grave with an iron fist about being a devout Roman Catholic. You never know. And well, I generally respect people's religious beliefs. I just don't know how intelligent, truth-telling people sort out the wheat from the chaff in the Catholic Church. all I pretty much know about is the chaff. Don't know much about wheat in the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church. So I don't know. Pretty weird to me. I don't know. It's not a subject I'm very open-minded about. And I think I've said enough. Well, it's getting late and I'm not tired. My nap was very warming and refreshing, and loving, and happy. So, I got no one fucking thing left to say. What did I have, $60-something? You wouldn't think somebody would think on their own, strike out on their own, think for themselves, champion important causes with factual scientific information, and be an idiot about their religious beliefs. But I always find I have more respect for people who leave the church and find a different faith or something than I do people who stay with the church. And it is one unbending truth about the Kennedy family is that they are devout Roman Catholics. And that truth just doesn't bend. And I think they're very intelligent, gifted, brave, quite amazing people. So, they must have their reasons. But I'm an intelligent, truth-telling person who was raised Catholic and knows something about the Catholic Church. And just the fact that they've protected predators of children, and my experience with Father Hudak, he, what do you call it? Extorted money from little old ladies in his parish when he was in Palm Beach or something. He told Ari and Donna he wanted, probably in my earshot, he wanted to move to one of the richer Florida parishes, like Palm Beach or something. I don't think West Palm, I think it was Palm Beach. Or Delray or something like that. But anyway, he preyed on little old ladies who trusted him in their home and trusted him with their money. And he was caught and he wasn't prosecuted. And I don't know if the people he extorted were paid back or what became of them. But my experience of Cyril Hudak was that he was an evil man. He was very frightening to me. He visited me in the hospital the first time when I was about as frightened as I could be, and he frightened me even more. He had icy cold blue eyes, and I said I wrote I was surrounded by evil people and I was really frightened. And that's what I wrote about being visited by Father Cyril. I think it's M as in mother. Cyril M. Hudak. Hudak. He was I forget what you call him. He wasn't a Monsignor, he was the head priest of St. Catherine's Church in Miami, Dade County, Southwest 107th Avenue, St. Catherine Catholic Church. He was a golfer, he was a vain man, he drove a convertible, he dyed his hair blonde, he didn't answer young teenage inquiring questions about the church's policy on statues and other things that I perceive to be idols, which the Bible warns us away from. Which may not be a huge issue because statues can be beautiful. But he didn't answer any of my questions about it. He didn't give a shit. He may not have known shit. I don't know. He was a shallow, vain, materialistic man with icy cold blue eyes. And he frightened me and struck me as evil when he visited me at Mercy Hospital in March of 1981. It was probably the most frightening experience of my life, that hospitalization. The first night I was there, I was just sitting in the lobby lounge area. There was a piano. I was just sitting on a sofa, staring at the clock. My left eye was bothering me, so I covered it. And one of the patients came out alarmed and looked around the lobby and saw me. What does me covering my left eye have to do with the patient on the ward? He was alarmed because I had covered my left eye, which I since suspected was an implanted camera. So was he watching what I was seeing on TV? Was he watching what I was seeing through my left eye on TV? But time passed very slowly. I watched the second hand on the clock tick, and it was very concerning to me that time was passing so slowly, and I didn't understand. So, Dr. Phelan had frightened me because he looked just like Evan Katz, who I'd met like a week before I stumbled into Phelan's world. They were both short men with bad toupees and glasses, stout. They looked almost exactly alike from my memory of Evan Katz meeting him at the end of a hallway in Debbie's house, my study buddy, after I was out in the sun with her and I was blinking light from my eyes when she introduced him like 2 or 3 doors down the hall. He was entering a psychiatric office or something. He was also a psychiatrist. And I was taken to Catholic counseling at whatever church is right by the University of Miami on Miller Drive. Can't remember the name of it right now. After my suicide attempt, and they recommended hospitalization at Mercy, which is the only Catholic hospital in the area. It's pretty far away, so instead of going to Baptist Hospital, which is nearby with a good reputation, or South Miami Hospital, or Doctor's Hospital, I was taken to Miami Beach, I guess is where Mercy Hospital is. It's pretty far away. The hospital is right on the water. And when I was taken to Phelan's office. He was to be my psychiatrist before I was taken to the locked ward. And I took one look at him, and my terror was so complete, I'm surprised I didn't wet myself. I was so fucking frightened. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I had a hard time thinking, breathing, everything, and so I just talked about the sculptures he had in his office and asked him questions about the sculptures and avoided every other subject and tried to somehow master my panic, which I didn't really succeed in doing. And then I was taken to the locked ward, and I was made to sign that I agreed the psychiatrist could perform any procedure on me that he deemed fit, including surgery. Scared the living fuck out of me to read that. This man who had frightened me so terribly, who looked so much like Evan Katz, and that was not a fucking coincidence. They did that to me on purpose. They introduced me to Evan Katz at somewhat of a distance, and then Dr. Phelan looked almost exactly like him. Scared the fuck out of me. When I go to the ward, it's a locked psychiatric ward, and I had to sign this release. And sign a release for this doctor who scared the fuck out of me to perform any procedure on me that he saw fit. The second time I probably was made to sign the release, the second time in June of '81, but I don't remember because I was given sodium amytal when I first got there, and it takes away your recent past memory and your present memory. And I remember being in the driveway, the curvy driveway of Mercy Hospital, approaching the hospital, and God forced me to say to Don, "Harry, you shouldn't be doing this to me. I am the Holy Spirit." Or, "I am the Holy Spirit, you shouldn't be doing this to me." It was forced out of my mouth. On the way to a psychiatric ward, I would not normally have said that, but it was mandatory. Do not say, "I'm a child, go to these people and tell them what I tell you to." That's a command of God. And then I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember signing the release. I remember meeting my roommate the next day, who was in for cocaine addiction. She was a nice woman, young woman, my age or maybe a little older. I was 22 years old. And some years later, when I sent away for my records, I saw sodium amytal given. I looked it up. It was one of the truth serums used by the CIA. Phenobarbital, I think, might be one, and sodium amytal. But amytal is the big one. And then I read it takes away your memory of the recent past and the present. So that's why I don't remember anything after saying to Don and Harry, "You shouldn't be doing this to me, I am the Holy Spirit." And that's what I meant when I wrote in Study of Evil, World Reappraised, my mouth wrote checks my body couldn't cash, because things would come out of my mouth that had nothing to do with my level of courage, because I had none. I was a puff of dandelion fuzz put through a steel mill in the hot fire. And puffs of dandelion fuzz don't stand in fire. They curl up. And I wrote in Study of Evil, the World Where It Praised, I was a frightened mass of quivering jelly from the moment I woke up in the morning to the moment I went to bed at night, and that was true for me through Cordis. That was true for me every day of my life, from being targeted and set up by my parents, and I wasn't quite as frightened after my suicide attempt after Cordis with the gun in my mouth, which I cocked and pulled the trigger of, and it didn't go off. A quivering mass of frightened jelly. From the moment I woke up in the morning to the moment I went to bed at night, I have such profound post-traumatic stress disorder that God has made me face it in the most horrible ways. God has been horribly abusive to me, in my opinion, when I would prefer to learn with love and kindness and kind speaking and massages and heal with nutrition and love. My waking life, my conscious life, has been a prolonged fucking nightmare. And I love God and I trust Him. It's probably coming to a close, but I'm comforted more now. He's here now. But I don't think a quivering mass of frightened jelly should be dealt with harshly to heal. And for some reason, God has deemed it necessary, and I'm not sure. I've always had this view of deprogramming, that you live the best waking life that you can, as fulfilling and pleasant and stress-free as you can, and you deal with the other issues as they come up in nightmares, or if you have pressing issues that you want to regress to help heal your psyche or something. But not this. Confronting one disaster after another, facing one of my two worst fears, homelessness, which I experienced for 5 months. Not rooflessness, homelessness. I had a roof. So I find, in all honesty, there is a serious division between me and the family in the United States and on the earth that I admire the most, which is the Kennedy family. I don't know how one remains a devout Roman Catholic in the face of the crimes of the Church, and not just recent but historical. I believe Maria Monk's account of seeing baby bones in the basement of an abbey buried in dirt, completely bare of flesh, infant bones. She was such a controversial figure that she has been slandered and crapped on throughout history, and I bought her book, which was got, a 400 or 500-year-old story. I just heard about her once, and she turned out to be one of those rare gems you find that knows shit and got slandered like a motherfucker. I don't know how you know these things about the Catholic Church and reconcile them with a good life and your own good mind. I know that in my extended family, Herky very intelligently objected to some kind of fair or something thrown by his church in Kenton, Ohio, where the pastor, that's what Hudak was, pastor of St. Catherine's, pastor, where the pastor of the church knowingly let underage kids drink at this thing, drink beer. And Herky was offended and upset. And he told me he wanted to leave the church, but he decided that he would stay with the church until Grandma died. And that was true for John. John is probably still a devoted Roman Catholic. Donna and Harry, though they were dangerous government-connected Satanists, very fucking dangerous. 2 children, and others, were devout Roman Catholics in their waking life, and I'm sorry, I can't get past the stain. So at this late date, I find I have a serious division with the Kennedy family. Because I don't understand how sensitive, intelligent people can see the wheat through the chaff. All I see is chaff and frightening experiences and frightening people. And people who confront terrible truths about their childhood leave the church. M. Scott Peck, MD, was a devout Catholic with an important man, priest or Jesuit or something as a friend. I don't remember the name. But this man knew about exorcism, and M. Scott Peck, MD, I believe, witnessed an exorcism or two, or was present at one, and it was terribly important, and he had to be spiritually centered and all that kind of stuff. And I picked up one of the books at the library, when the library was temporary, in where that new thrift store by A&W. The library had temporary quarters in that building where the new thrift store is, and some Indian community, Native American community center. I picked up a book by this man, and it was about demons, and it scared me, and the man scared me, and I closed the book. And then I find that M. Scott Peck, MD, left the church and became a Methodist, and then he died in 2005. And he was a very insightful man. The Satanists slandered the living fuck out of him in my vicinity. People of the Lie, The Hope for Healing Human Evil is and was a very important book in my opinion. It's an introduction to some basic concepts about evil that I found very insightful and helpful. And my understanding is Michelle Smith and Lawrence Padzer, MD. Michelle remembered things about her mother, about the church, about what had been done to her at the hands of the church, with people from the church present. She remembered Satanism. She remembered a huge ritual in Canada with, I don't know if she said hundreds or thousands of people. Thousands, I think she said, in Canada. And she was a little girl, and she was witnessing these things. And she said, I wish somebody would hold my hand. And she retells that an angel told her, you don't want to hold those hands. She was a frightened little girl. When they uncovered her truths, they went to the church to try to get an investigation. And I guess the church fucked him around and didn't pay attention, and they kept trying, but they left the church too. That is my recollection of events. They left the church, dude. M. Scott Peck, MD, left the church, so I have never had a comfortable feeling about Rose Kennedy. I saw her in a video. And she was in black with a black lace mantilla and a black limousine to be chauffeured in. And she was saying she doesn't miss Mass any day of the week. She goes every day of the week, or every weekday, and then Sunday. 8 o'clock Mass in the morning. And she reminded me so much of my fucking mother. I just really got a creepy feeling about Rose. And I just got me a new hero, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And maybe God will comfort me while I sleep that he could still be a hero of mine and somehow be a devout Roman Catholic. Or maybe he no longer is, but that book was written in 2018, I think. Or something. I don't know. But I've got all these Kennedy pictures. I talked to the picture of Ted in the kitchen. I have loved and admired John and Robert and Ted, and now Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I think is as bold as a lion. And all I can think of is kowtowing to Rose and her wishes from beyond her grave, and being devout Roman Catholics with no logic, no reasoning. I don't know. I really have blinders on this subject. I really have blinders on. So God knows that, now I know that, and I'm not going to throw the Kennedy pictures away or anything. I mean, John Kennedy seemed to love his wife and his children. Robert was a very good man. They were assassinated. Ted was a good man. Very intelligent, a very good leader in the Senate. My leader on issues without ever knowing it. I never met Ted. I think I wrote his office a letter or two. They got one wrong, and I called him and let him know that that was not my position. That was reflected in his office's reply, and to please correct it and send me a corrected letter. One attempt on my life was done by a Catholic priest visiting from Ireland to Miami. The intent was to kill me, but his timing was a little off. He didn't hit square in my door. I think that's what it is. I got hit in the door and I broke my left collarbone. Then the car behind me, driven by an orthopod's son, a Kalbach, K-A-L-B-A-C. The Kalbachs are orthopods. This was a younger Kalbach. I had his older brother in organic chemistry, Danny Kalbach, I think. I'm not sure. As far as I remember, he came to class in some kind of formal attire with a briefcase. He had a reputation, maybe Ann told me about it, because he was older than me. At junior high, or she knew of him in senior high. Just a snotty kid, or just not a nice family. But anyway, it was his little brother that hit me from behind. And I got thrown from my little VW Bug. So between a priest and an orthopod son named Kalbach and Danny, if he was the one in organic, he was pre-med, so he's probably an orthopod now. Bill Burkhalter was head of the Roadrunner Club, which I belong to, for commuters to the University of Miami, and he's north of Pod now, like his father. And now that I mention it, I have a Joseph McPherson, MD, following me. I have one follower, and he's north of Pod. And I don't know why an orthopod would follow me. On Twitter, he's my only follower. I used to have others, but I deleted accounts, or they got abandoned, or I abandoned them, or they disappeared. But I had some celebrities following me for a while. Harrison Ford, Nicolas Cage, Bruce Willis, Liam Neeson, Dolly Parton. Satanists made a big to-do about that, but I thought these celebrities appreciated the issues I was explaining that I had knowledge of and experience of in my life. And I thought the celebrities were like secret listeners to my archive.org videos and audios. Or I had a lot of listeners. For someone who had a very low traffic web page, like, 5 a day, and that's because I was in a couple web rings, which they disappeared, the web rings. There are no more web rings anymore. But I thought there was goodwill with the celebrities. There may have been a few more. Liam Neeson was the first. Harrison Ford was the most consistent. Like, Bruce Willis dropped off, and I don't know if he came back, but Harrison Ford kind of poofed and came back, and kind of poofed and came back. So I thought I had some celebrity support, and then Satanists raped me up the wall, about that. That they were all Satanists, they imitated the Satanists, they imitated the celebrities, and slandered the celebrities, and raped everything, absolutely everything. So truthfully, I don't know. Harrison Ford is a helicopter pilot in private life. And I read that he runs rescues sometimes with his private helicopter. And he takes these risks for people. Rescues, hikers lost or something, stuff like that. Bruce Willis has a left eyebrow scar, so does Keanu Reeves. I don't think Keanu ever followed me. Bill Hicks had a left eyebrow scar. I have a left eyebrow scar. So, Bill Hicks, Keanu Reeves, Bruce Willis. I think that's all I found. They're all men. To me. But it is an indication of a spiritual person. And if a spiritual person, like an ancient, like Jim DeClue, goes bad, it's havoc. They wreak havoc in lives, or they have the potential to, so I don't know. I don't think Bill Hicks turned. He was, in my estimation, somehow given pancreatic cancer, probably through a vaccine, going overseas by probably a trusted doctor. And he died. In fact, at the end of his HBO special at the Palladium Theatre in London, he ends it at the very end with and falls down on the floor. In other words, he had a rant about, you see these people with wisdom and they're leaders. And what do? We kill those people and let the demons run amok. He said that. He said a lot of things. And at the very end, he doesn't point a finger to himself. He didn't kill himself. But you hear a gunshot, several gunshots, and he falls to the ground, and that's his way of saying that he too is going to be assassinated. And he was. In my snoopy detective estimation, he was given pancreatic cancer probably through an injection. He had to go overseas for his HBO special, and he was presented with the opportunity to do a show in London or in the UK somewhere. So he probably had whatever vaccines you have to get to go overseas. And then Letterman got his hopes up when Bill was struggling with pancreatic cancer and I understand him doing remarkably well. Letterman, whose show Bill had been on several times, but he was never allowed to use his best material that he used in London. Letterman handed him his dreams on a silver platter. He can do his whole routine, maybe with some small exceptions, to an American audience on the Letterman stage, and Bill was elated. That's my understanding. He was struggling with pancreatic cancer, which is a vicious one, and doing remarkably well was my understanding. Letterman handed him his dreams on a silver platter, and then right before airtime, pulled the rug right out from under him, and told him the censors changed their minds. He'd been approved, he'd been given the go. He was probably going to do Kennedy and Bush and all those things he did in London. And that killed his spirit, along with whatever cancer was doing to him, and he died. So Letterman, in my view, had as much to do with his death as the pancreatic cancer. And I pretty much hate David Letterman, but I didn't like him or his show. I don't like him at all. I don't like that guy that Cheryl Hines plays his wife, Larry David. Larry David's connected to Saturday Night Live, and I don't like that guy. Lorne Michaels. I think Larry David was above Lorne Michaels. I think Larry David did Seinfeld. I don't know, he's some important guy. And then he had his own show, Curb Their Enthusiasm. I just didn't have a good feeling about him. Never watched the show. Seinfeld was an okay show. But Jerry was very disdainful. My experience here, not here in this exact location, but in various locations, as Jerry Seinfeld was just disdainful of me. And now I'm talking about things that upset me, and I'm not as happy as I was a few hours ago, so this should pass. I haven't played any music, so I'm going to upload this.